Okay, welcome everyone to the Analytic Minds podcast. Really interesting episode for you once again here. I'm joined by Juan Orozco. Hopefully I pronounced that right. We practiced it before, but I probably stuffed it up. You can fix it up for me, Juan. But Juan is the manager of business analytics at US Foods. So, another large US company. So lots of really interesting things that we can dive into around analytics challenges, analytics strategy. Just how to go about things from a data and analytics perspective within organizations. So I'm excited to get into this one. So Juan, why don't you do a much better intro than I just did, and just give us a bit of background about yourself and some of the things that you're doing at the moment.
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Pleasure to be here. So my name is Juan Orozco. I am the business intelligence manager for US Foods. I run replenishment and category management, which are two big parts of the supply chain world at US Foods. A little bit of background about myself. Graduated from Bradley University in 2014. So I've been in the workforce for about 6 years now, studying industrial engineering. And from there, I went into manufacturing for 2 years, running a department there as well. We did a lot of coding, so COATING, which is a thermodynamic process that you utilize to code a lot of different things. For my specific background, I did precision components, which is parts that NASA, for example, Formula One cars would use. In the coding itself, what it would do in a thermodynamic process with evaporization of paint, let's say, would make the parts endure faster. And it would actually use that coating to use as lubrication. So instead of using oil or any other material, the coating will make that lubrication for you in the Formula One's cars and NASA equipment, and then will make those parts last longer than expected. So if a part was supposed to only last 2 years, our coating would make it last 6 years. So I did that for 2 years. I ran the operations, the quality control, as well as customer service underneath a team of 4 people. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I realized maybe manufacturing is not what I want to do. A lot of hours and a lot of standing on my feet. So I joined US Foods as an operation analyst. And then from there, I do a little bit of analytics in terms of not what I'm doing now, but I would run reports, I would run Excel, I would start merging Excel spreadsheets and do VLOOKUPs and if statements. And I wasn't having a lot of fun through that because it was very manual. So then I got promoted to project manager of industrial engineering, and I oversaw pretty much a lot of different processes at US Foods. Within that, I realized that all my projects require a lot of analytics, not only to pinpoint exactly what the issues were, but also track performance, right? And identify who's lagging, who are the top performers, and then from those top performers, how can we implement whatever they are doing in their warehouses, for example, and then translate that into the laggers of whatever project or process I was trying to improve. I quickly realized then, and I got hooked up with an analyst in the Insights and Analytics team, which is the department that I'm now currently in as a manager. And they showed me what SQL was and what Tableau was. And within maybe 2 months, I just fell in love with what they were doing, started learning SQL, started playing with Tableau. And then within 6 months, once I was a little bit good at SQL, I applied for a position as a senior business analyst. Thankfully, I got hired. And then for those 2 years, I learned a lot. I learned what Alteryx was. I learned what Tableau was. I learned what SQL was. And I also learned Python. Within those, let's say, a year and 6 months, I learned a lot. I ran a lot of high-level projects for executives, SVPs, and managers that I supported, and then got promoted to manager at US Foods. So that's essentially where I'm currently sitting at.
Nice one. That's a cool intro. It gives us a lot of things to build upon. Just to give us a little bit of scope, how big is US Foods for those who don't know it so well?
Yeah, so we are around 35,000 employees. There's
Mm,
around 3,000 at corporate, and the rest are out in the field. So that
mhm,
includes drivers, selectors, anything that is within the operations, marketing. All of that is also outside.
mhm,
We're around $25 billion
mm,
as a company.
mm,
We're also public. And for our distribution, we've grown a lot since I joined, but currently our broad line is around 70 DCs. And if
mhm,
we've also acquired a couple of different other companies that add on to that, but we're still in the process of actually, integrating them into our system.
mm, mm.
Um,
Cool.
so yeah,
And
a lot.
so it's yeah, I mean that's huge, right? It's just absolutely the scope. The scope is massive, and I think always one of the big challenges with companies of that size is like where do you start, right? So I've gone over some of those things in previous episodes. So I want to dive into some more specific things to yourself. So it seems like you're more on the supply chain side, or the sort of managing distribution centers, and the data that streams from them. Would that be right?
So that's what I used to be, and
Okay.
that was the great part of me joining an INA team or Insights Analytics. As if you hear me refer to INA, that's what it stands for, Insights and Analytics, which is basically the business intelligence department of US Foods.
Mm-hmm.
So my expertise, to an extent, was that it was supply chain operations. But then I wanted something new. So when I applied to the position, I didn't want to be stuck supporting supply chain. I wanted to move a little towards something else that I know.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily or unluckily, depending on how you view things, I'm supporting replenishment. So it's pretty much refurbishing the inventory, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
little away from supply chain, but still within supply chain because they interact very well. And then I
Mm-hmm.
also lead the team of category management. So it's anything between pricing, marketing, as well as relationship with the vendors. Within those two, however, those are probably two of the biggest departments at US Foods. So
Mm-hmm.
I deal with a lot of FP&A work as well. So it's a lot of a strategic planning in that sense. So for the past 2 years, that's what I've been doing. And for the past year that I've been a manager, essentially leading those two in meeting with the high level executives to pinpoint what we've analyzed and where we should go based on the data, right? Because the data doesn't lie.
Mm-hmm. What I think would be really valuable to get into is just to highlight maybe some of the value that can be generated by some of the analytics initiatives that you know you have implemented. I mean, you don't have to go into any specifics. It's sort of more like broadly, what are some of the things that you've analyzed as a group to sort of say, hey, if we prioritize our efforts in this particular area, in this sort of optimization or in this sort of analytics, uh, this is the impact that we could have. And it'd be really interesting to maybe go through an example or two of, just high level, like what sort of things that you've been able to focus on and sort of say, hey, our return on investment regarding this piece of work is enormous. So I'd be interested to see, what, to almost inspire others about what you could have a look at or what you could prioritize within any other business.
Yeah, sure. So the two things that we focused before on anything was service level and inventory optimization. So service level is pretty much how are we servicing our customers? Are we doing well, not only within our company, but also let's compare to other competitors and figure out what they're doing better. Is it pricing? Is it more headcount? Or is it saying no, saying we can't bend over backwards for your customers because that's not, that's not effective, but we can do X, Y, and C, see if that works for you, and maybe our service level will go higher as well as like our quality of the product as well, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the the two that I can think of was the first one we implemented descriptive analytics, which is what happened in the past, right? What has gone bad for the last 2 years? Let's analyze that first. And then we can move into the diagnostic analytics, which is why did it happen and how can you improve upon for the next 2 months to see if those metrics improve better. So the one thing that I can tell you is it's a metric that we call DIOH, which is days of inventory on hand. And what we basically did is we took a look at your inventory levels per specific categories. So produce, grocery, and COP, which is your center plate. We looked at all that inventory and we said, okay, we have a vendor that gives us our forecast for this. It runs a batch every Sunday, right? But we're not really getting the big buck for that bank in terms of actually us having low level inventory, but also servicing our customer, let's say 100%. What we did is we ran analysis on a specific categories, vendors, and specific customers that were kind of killing both metrics. One, the DLH should always be low, the most optimal level, right? And then also, how is that service level compared to other segmentations that are kind of on the same level? So what we did is we created 5 different dashboards, one for inventory optimization, one for service level, and one diagnostic that kind of combined both metrics to see where are our biggest improvements, or per se, your needle in the haystack. So when we did that, specific departments noticed their needle in the haystack. So the vendor collaboration team noticed that 7 of our biggest vendors were cutting us, which then cut our inventory, which also made our service level lower than our standards. Same thing with the replenishment team. They saw that maybe our forecast wasn't good enough, so they should probably expand a little bit on their inventory, which then resulted in a higher service level. Overall, that took around 6 months to do. And the ROI from that perspective is we lower our inventory supply by a day, which means that in itself reduced inventory by $7 million. However, we maintain our service level to our customer at the goal that we wanted, and then everyone was happy. We weren't spending a lot of money of inventory, and our customers were happy. They were buying more stuff, which increased our sales. And then overall, the impact on the business from the inbound and the outbound perspective was optimized and was brought to a higher level service level from that perspective and a lower level of inventory without impacting our customer experience.
Nice one. I just want to highlight a few just key points that I take away from that example, which was great, is that was like a huge optimization project, right? And I think that can be related to any business. Like go out and figure out, okay, what are the sort of big drivers of say ancillary factors like customer happiness, or it could be like revenue drivers, right? Or just optimizations on cash. Go and figure out what optimization you want to focus in on and really drill in, and really prioritize that specific thing. And with that prioritization, then what data you need to collect, what tools you need to use, what dashboards you require, and if you can really create a bit of focus, I think that is when you can drive quite significant impact in your analytics initiatives. And when you were just sort of describing that to me, I just thought, wow, this is a compelling optimization project, because there's so many things that I presume you have to deal with, right? You don't want to have too much inventory, because then that's a lot of cash that gets tied up in stock that is just sitting on shelves. But you don't want to have too little inventory, because then someone's going to buy a competitor's product if yours isn't on the shelf. And so to me, the nuances of managing that are quite they're quite complex, but also can have such a huge impact when you can actually make that work, when you can actually bring something together and then produce some sort of compelling insights, compelling dashboard to put in front of executives who ultimately, or customers, stakeholders who ultimately need to make decisions on it.
Exactly. You hit it right in the nail. I mean, it's really just an overall optimization from one optimization of inventory to another optimization of service level. And let's add a twist to it. We also needed to take a look into the optimization of inventory because we argue as foods, we deal with, let's say 90% of our inventory it's food, right? Groceries. And that 10% is probably disposables or stuff that you carry your food with. So that level where we could say, hey, you don't have enough inventory of this product to make your customer happy. If we did say that and that those sales didn't actually materialize, that product spoiled. So we also had to deal with the fact that there was a lot of risk if we did bring a lot of inventory. We were also measuring our service level effectiveness and see how many people, because we were optimizing service level and gradually lowering it, that we didn't lose sales and we didn't also lose customers. So in reality, there were 4 metrics.
Did you do some advanced analytics to try and predict if that would happen? If certain things, if you pulled a few levers on your end, did you try and predict what might happen on the customer side?
We did. We did build a model. It was fairly new, so just as an FYI, INA is probably AWS Foods is probably 4 to 5 years in maturity, and data science was brought in 2 years ago. So actually, it was 2 years ago when we started looking at the modeling. Yes, we did build an actual app. We called it a Flask app, where you use the word exactly what we did. We put levers. We gave 5 different variables, and we said, if you want a good forecast accuracy, make it 100% if you like, but you're going to see your service level, your inventory, and your sales drop. Or same thing, if you want your inventory to be at a certain number of days, you're going to see your service level drastically go up or go down, depending on how much of that lever did you pull.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds really good. There's a couple of things that I also want to go into this from this example, because I think there's lots of things around how you went about this that I think would be quite valuable. The first thing that I want to dig a bit deeper into is, the scope of what you're probably dealing with from an analytics perspective is large, right? So how do you think the team and your organization decided upon this optimization project versus another? Is there some internal scoring mechanism that has been developed, or was it kind of just like, a manager said, this is what we're doing? Like, I want to try to understand how within a large organization, so this could be replicated maybe by others, how to go about deciding what to focus on versus what not to.
Yeah, so good question. What we do is with ELT, which is our executive leadership team, that's what we call the C-suite at US Foods. What we do is we go quarterly to ELT, and we say, these are the priorities that we think we should focus on. So we come in with a recommendation, and then the business from that perspective also says what the priorities are. So then ELT kind of makes a decision, and they saw the gap between our competitors in some of the inventory optimization that we're doing, as well as our service level. So what we essentially did was I'm an engineer. I come from the supply chain world. So I would call this a Kaizen exercise, where we went and we discussed each individual KPI and figure out which one will impact the most the company. And they came up with these 2. From a replenishment perspective and a category management perspective, those were the 2 that would give us the most ROI if we were able to optimize it all.
Nice. And
So
I like that investment approach. Like it's kind of like it's like investing in a portfolio of assets. It's like, okay, let's list out all of the projects that we could work on from a data and analytics perspective. Let's also try and put an ROI on each of these, and then the highest ones that we think are going to make the biggest impact is what we're going to tackle first. And it sounds like
exactly.
that's kind of like the in summary of how it's done. So yeah, I like that. I really like that, and I think that also, you can have this initial stage where you do a bit of mind mapping around all the opportunities, but then you bring everyone in to focus on the highest impact things first. And I think that brings down such an enormous scope of things you could do down to a more manageable scope of things that you should do. And I think that is vitally important around extracting the value from your data initiatives.
Yep, 100%. And then we also implemented and have been leveraging agile methodology. So
Right.
we work in sprints, and not only do we work in sprints with the business, but we're also trying to um, figure out we were going in the right direction, right? So if we were working on on a specific model or analysis for a week, I think it was very beneficial for us to go back to the business and say, here are the results that we're seeing. Are we off? Is this not something that we should focus on? And should we now look into another variable that is impacting our KPIs? In most
Mm,
instances, not in most instances, but in some instances, we were completely off. There's
mm,
so much closer to the business, into the way the process works and how each metric should look like from a business lens only, that it was very helpful for us to sometimes being proven wrong and make sure that we weren't focusing on things that at the end of the day wouldn't come with any ROI
mm.
when we finish
Nice.
the project.
Yeah, I myself am not an expert on this agile methodology, but I've always really liked the idea of sprints. And when you contrast this historically with any sort of significant IT project, you're usually talking about like a couple of years to implement something, right? And when you talk more about sprints, you get more into this prototyping frame of mind, and that is what I think is crucial to a successful analytics department, or just success around your analytics initiatives, because you want to be, you can extract the value pretty quickly from prototyping reports these days, right? You can showcase you can create a nice dashboard with all of the out of the box tools that are available now. You can get that in front of stakeholders, and you can get feedback really quickly. It shouldn't take months, it shouldn't take years. And if you can build in this sprinting method, this framework or this prototyping framework into what you're doing, I think that is where you'll get these exponential improvements on your data culture, because everyone will be far more immersed in constant feedback and decision making based on data, data insights. And so I really want to highlight that, because I think that is quite a huge development over the last couple of years, especially with the enablement of new tools that can be used.
I agree. It's been for me as a manager, especially, it's been great for me to now waste my time.
Mm,
Or to some extent, sometimes the business is asking for something that either doesn't make sense or it won't be productive, right?
mm,
So even if I don't agree with it at times, the business wins sometimes. The stakeholders have a little more weight than I do. So I do go and say, okay, let's gather the requirements. Let's meet back in 2 weeks. We'll show you what we have, and if it still makes sense, then we go and move forward with it. And if it doesn't
mm,
make sense, then we completely cancel the project. We focus on something else that will, at the end of the day, help the business more. And there's
mm,
also been instances where we've just completely shut down the project because they had a hunch, they had a feeling, they had a belief, but the data spoke in the other on the other side of the coin, and
mm,
we didn't waste any time there. We could have wasted 6 months working on something that at the end of the day wasn't going to be fruitful.
mm,
So that's another part of it as well,
mm.
being able to be effective with your time.
It's such, how you just described that, you just contrast that to say like 10 years ago, and it's just a whole new paradigm, isn't it, in terms of how you can build a process around decision making. It just wasn't possible before, and it's almost upon organizations, I feel, to replicate some of what you're describing, because if you don't, it feels like you're really going to be up against it.
Yep, you're right. I mean, it goes hand in hand with continuous improvement, right? Six Sigma methodologies as well, where you try something out. If it doesn't work, then you move to something else, still aiming for the same goal, but it might be a different route.
Yeah, nice. Now, I want to move on to another interesting topic that I think came up with the example that you ran through. It'd be interesting to understand almost like your tools stack when you are working on one of your optimization projects. You mentioned things like SQL, Alteryx, Tableau, Python. So what I think would be great is, how do you bring all these together? How do you stack these on top of each other to create this analytics solution, right? To then, ultimately deliver a consumer, something that a stakeholder can consume in a efficient way.
Sure. This is exactly my passion. This is why I'm a manager. It's bringing all those components together. So part of I took another role as well as part of being a manager for business analytics. So I'm the co-lead of the BI COE team here at US Foods. In our 4 committees that we thought we should focus on, because it has worked great in my group, is optimization, standards, data hubs, peer development, and delivery methods. And I'll kind of touch on the 5 of them within the process that my team does. So to start, we gather requirements, which is the full scope of Agile methodology. We focus on the customer first. We don't think about dashboards. We don't think about the data. Is it there? Is it not there? We don't care about that. We first get full requirements from that business stakeholder, and we understand what their need is and what their ultimate goal is. We don't focus on how we're going to do it. We're just going to focus on why. And if we do understand the scope of the project and what the ideal outcome is, then we move forward with the second step, which is the data, right? My full team knows SQL at this point. So we use Snowflake as our data hubs, or our data warehouse management system, which sits on top of AWS. And the SQL is written as optimized as possible. So we have structure for the SQL. We know exactly how the case statements work, the where statements, all of that needs to be optimized. And we do peer reviewing and something called mob programming, which is you write the SQL. If you get stuck, you either go into this mob programming session where you bring in your problem, and then the rest of the team goes in and tries to figure out why you're having the issue and how to solve it. And that if everything is completed and is good to go, then you have a peer or another analyst come in and review your entire SQL to make sure it's good to go. Validation, QA, all of that is done there. Then you move into Python, which is either for our predictive modeling, or in this case, most of my team uses for automation. So it's funny, one of your podcasts, you had someone that was using remote desktops and remote servers to deliver data to a third-party vendor or a customer. What we do right now, and I'll go into what our next steps are, our automation is pretty much in Python. We either have really 2 value streams. The first one is to just update tables in Snowflake. So it'll run automatically and either insert or truncate and recreate the table of the data. And that will then push it out to Tableau, and then we'll build the dashboards. And the second part of it is Tableau has been implemented and it has been adopted, but not fully. There's people that love their Excel. So I'm not going to always push everything to Tableau, because some of the things are really meant to be in Excel. So we use Python to push things into Excel, make it pretty, create pivots, refreshes, all of that. It's done through Python and VBA a little bit. And then we send that out into a ShareCorp drive. And then our automation sends out a link saying, hey, your report is ready to go. This is the link to your ShareCorp drive. Click on it. Everything is there. And then from a Tableau perspective, again, with Python, we update those tables into Snowflake. And then in Tableau, we make your visualizations, your diagnostic and prescriptive dashboards. And then we UAT. So we do a wireframe. If they're good to go with the wireframe, they kind of have the idea and the vision of what the dashboard will look like. If they're good with that and they buy into it, which is really the first step into the adoption of Tableau, and then being able to kind of evangelize the way that the dashboard does and kind of pushes it out for everyone to use it. If you get that from a leader perspective or from whoever is going to use it, if they think that this is going to work, then 50% or 60% of our work is done. So we build the dashboards, we UAT it to make sure that what the dashboard is doing is exactly what they need to run the business. And then from there, it comes to me and I take a look at performance of the dashboard. I think that's very important for a stakeholder. So if the dashboard takes 30 seconds to render, they're going to quit and say, hey, just send me an Excel with this data. I'll do my own pivot tables. So I think a key part of Tableau is being able to know how to optimize Tableau in SQL. Write good SQL, make everything that you can, all the different calculations that you can do in SQL before it even hits Tableau. Because Tableau, it's a great tool, but it's essentially a giant pivot table that can actually give you insights, right? So once you have optimized your SQL, then Tableau will run fairly quickly and the adoption rate will skyrocket. If it's good, it gives you the answers that you need and it's fast enough for them to, get what they need from that data.
Yeah, and where does Alteryx fit in?
So Alteryx is something that they brought in 2 years ago. I don't use it as much. I told my team to focus more on their technical skills. I'm not saying Alteryx is not something that everyone should use, but from my perspective, I wanted my team to know exactly what was being done. So them knowing how to join things through SQL, them knowing how to pull things and understand how that SQL is transforming on saturated on unstructured data into something that they can make sense of. And then same thing with Python. So Python, I needed them to understand how the model is working, what the formulas are doing, and how to build anything from scratch. So the knowledge is there and they can also cross-train each other and make sure that they can upscale their skills.
Yeah, so Alteryx, because my a lot of our audience would probably use Power BI as well. So it's sort of just building a comparison. So it seems like Alteryx, a lot of the things that Alteryx does in a point and click sort of way can be done still with SQL or Python if you know what you're doing from a coding perspective. And then when you compare that to Power BI, what Power BI has is it has the query editor. It has this inbuilt query editor, which I think can do a lot of what Alteryx can do. It can do a lot of what SQL can do. I don't think it can do a lot of what Python can do. Maybe some things, because Python seems like a very flexible language. I personally myself haven't used it much, but it seems like it's sort of in everybody's language, really, in everything language. Sort of, it can do automations, it can do data transformations, it can do data merging, it can do a whole range of different things. Machine learning, advanced analytics, all that type of stuff.
Everything. Python is, and it is not something that I drove from the beginning. That was my manager bringing that in and saying, "Hey, we should all learn it." That's because Alteryx wasn't doing what we were hoping to do.
Right.
But it was just another skill to add into our set of skills, right? And once we noticed how powerful it was, then we realized that maybe we can do a lot more to it. It's a universal language. Um, like you said, Alteryx pretty much can do a lot of things that Python does. I mean, it can do deciles. One of the things that we're trying to do is deciling, but a weighted average. So we try to do it with Alteryx, and the problem was that we didn't know exactly what it was doing. Where if I told my analyst, "Hey, can you do a decile based on these specific variables and the specifications?" the outcomes would come out exactly like we were hoping. Um, so that's only the difference, right? You kind of lose a little bit of visibility with Alteryx, but Alteryx is a great tool for, you know, just merging tables, doing joins, and even automation. I mean, you can automate all your workflows in a server and have them run without you touching anything. So great tool, but in my case, I kind of wanted them to be able to explain everything that we did to the business instead of saying, well, Alteryx did this and this is the outcome without really being able to explain why and risk the credibility of our data to that extent.
Yeah, nice. No, I really enjoyed learning about how you stacked all these technologies together, right? To actually get to this ultimate solution, this ultimate product that you can put in front of key stakeholders. And I think it just takes almost a bit of creativity to know what to bring together to sort of layer one on top of the other to get what you need. And when you can get a good overview of what's possible and you've got that creativity, it's really unlimited what you can achieve, right? If you can go out to the business, and I also liked how you always start with the why. If you can go out to the business and find someone who's got a big problem, and then how to bring all these tools together. I mean, there's just enormous value that you can provide as an individual or as a team within organizations of any size, really.
Yeah, it's like I said before, that's my passion, being able to come into a room and them telling us a problem, and then let's say 2 months, 3 months later, here's your answer, and here's everything else that you didn't know that came with the question that you wanted answered. One of the cool things that I wanted to mention that we did was a diagnostic process where 60%. So going back to service level, when we struggle with service level, or when we are not hitting our goal, or we want to strive to a better service level, we have a report that spits out around 60% of the reason codes of why we took outs in our role. That means we didn't deliver the product of what they wanted exactly. If they ordered 10 cases of whatever, we delivered 10 cases. If we only deliver 8 cases, why do we not ship the other 2 cases? So this report, what it does is 60% of it is logic that we built in to explain why. And the other, let's say 35% that we cannot explain for some reason why we took a hit in our service level. Someone goes in and reviews, this item took an out, and they go and review it. Okay, it was a vendor issue, it was this, it was that. They have the capability to go into Excel, use a drop down and say, here's the issue that our logic couldn't solve for. Then what we do with Python is we grab all those files that they used to kind of populate the reason codes of why our service level is the way it is, and we push it into Snowflake. And then we have Tableau dashboard on top of it, not only showing what our service level has been, but also explaining in a diagnostic way are your bigger issues. So you control seasonality, you control vendor issues, you control outside variables that are impacting your service level, and you also control internal variables that you can actually fix. Sometimes you get lucky and 50% of your issues are internal. You can actually address those other 50%. Maybe you need to start engaging our third vendor parties, or whatever else it may be. And then the other 20%, it's out of our control. We can at least state that to Wall Street, to our stakeholders, and say, unless the market overall changes, this is where we land.
Have you seen, it definitely sounds to me that there's been pretty significant transformation within the business because of what these new tools and combinations of these tools enables. Would you say that the visibility over these insights has just gone up exponentially over the last sort of 4 to 5 years, maybe whilst you've been with the organization?
It definitely, it feels like we're making a change. It feels like there's a big impact, and that data now speaks more than a feeling. Anyone that comes in, I would say maybe 90% of any presentation from ELTs, or anything that it's a KPI related, or even an issue that is coming or has been going on through some times. You see a dashboard screenshots, you see a graph that my team built or someone else from another team within INA has built. Not too long ago, we had our quarterly review with Wall Street, right? That data came from us. So nothing now really, we see pretty much everything through, because data stewardship and the way that INA has been able to structure the source of truth, to a sense, it's very important for US Foods, and really rely on that to make critical decisions, or overall just track performance to see where we're at. So to your question, I think now more than ever, data in business intelligence is imperative for a company to stay afloat, improve, get more efficient, and optimize any process that company sells or maintains.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm one of the biggest believers in that. There's no denying that. So we'll round off shortly, but I want to just touch on a couple of other things that you might have exposure to that would be really interesting. How have you internally gone about sort of just governance strategies, data governance strategies, making sure that what you are ultimately putting in front of stakeholders or decision makers is correct? Like how do you manage that process?
So that's a big question, right? It seems like from a BI governance perspective, in a data governance, it takes an army to do this. It can be done by one person. You need to transform your entire data stewards. So it can be an analyst, it can be someone outside of business intelligence that needs to hear this, where we have processes that, I think there's two things that we focus on that have been very effective for us in the short term and will be in the long term, is data hubs. So these data hubs, you essentially focus your attention into specific KPIs, specific data integrity polls that each manager, for example, in business analytics, will oversee. So in my case, I own two big segments. I know what the data should be, I know where to get it from, and I know how to clean it up before it sees the eyes of anyone. So what we're doing is,
could I break that out a little bit, because I think that's interesting. So instead of just having like a central BI department and everyone sort of just deals with everyone, you've decided to say, okay, you've almost segmented your BI division or your center of excellence to these data hubs, which are specifically focused on specific data within the business, so that you truly understand it and know all the collaborators that you should be working with to make the things happen.
Exactly. So we have SMEs for data, and we have SMEs for the business side. So not only do you need to understand how the data is coming, how to clean it, but does it make sense? Does it come to part what we're observing? So it's a partnership between the business and us. And then at the end of the day is controlling that data, right? So if you need to pull data for, gross profit, Don't go and pull it out of some table that you know in Snowflake. Here's the mapping of where you can pull the data. There's a data hub that is governed, and you can pull the data knowing that this data is clean for you to use and to present it to anyone, right? Because it's been vetted. So that's one part of it. In the second part of it is source of truth, which kind of goes along with this, right? You know that when you present this, you pull it from a place that has been secured and vetted to an extent where we have kind of evangelized the entire world. Here is where you pull all of this data. Here are all the data hubs that you should be pulling data from. And if you pull from somewhere else, then we cannot back that up, right? So it kind of sets a red flag for anyone to not pull data anymore from there. In the second part of this BI governance transformation is get rid of all systems. So if we're bringing a system, do not keep the legacy system still intact in our world. We get rid of it. Don't spend any more money on it. Don't invest in it. And little by little, use change management to say, hey, don't pull data from here. Pull data from Tableau. Pull data from Snowflake, because this data is no good anymore.
I really like that idea of data hubs. I think if you're really going to get serious about your analytics initiatives, you almost need a structure, some sort of structure around data ownership and data responsibility. And I think the concept of data hubs makes that more easy to frame in your organization or in sort of your executive layer. They can actually see, okay, well, here is where I should focus my resources around this particular initiative or this particular project. It should be this hub. This data hub should have ownership of it. Because I think what you would find historically is that basically everyone just goes to the IT department, and then you've got these IT professionals who are generalists, right? They're meant to be looking over everything and are experts at nothing. And if you can get everyone down into these smaller groups, these data hubs, and I presume this maybe comes from the agile methodology, but I presume, but you can get a lot more focus, a lot more expertise on what really matters to those users who are maybe creating the reports in Excel or Tableau or Power BI, versus just having some generic support ticketing functionality or mechanism that just goes to your general IT department. So I think that sort of structure makes a lot of sense if you're getting really serious about making an impact with data.
Oh yeah, for sure. It doesn't come from agile methodology. It does come from various leaders at US Food that thought this was great. So my previous manager, I'll name drop him because I think he's been a big influence on me. His name is Jay Pollack. He was the previous manager where I'm standing now. And some of the things were his. Like, a lot of it comes from struggle, Sam. A lot of it comes from people yelling at us because this metric is not matching what they pull in another system. So a lot of it also came from saying, okay, we need something that not also helps the company, but helps us to validate our data, to make sure that everyone has engagement with us and don't go somewhere else and pull that data because it might be wrong, right? Data stewardship in change management is really everything that encompasses a successful business intelligence organization, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, awesome points there. I think that is some really valid advice that others can certainly leverage for sure. Juan, I think we can probably round off there. I think that we've covered some super stuff today in this particular episode. And I think there's so many takeaways from like how to organize yourself around your data initiatives, to what sort of tools to use, what sort of things to prioritize. I mean, we covered a lot within the last sort of hour or so. So, super thankful that you made the time to come on today and provide, let everyone in on some of your expertise in this particular space. So yeah, huge thank you for being a part of the Analytic Mind podcast today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Hope to be a guest again and see where this goes. Good luck to you, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, and thanks everyone for tuning in to the Analytic Mind podcast. Really appreciate all your feedback that you've given us on the variety of different listening apps that are out there. Plenty more great content like this one coming out soon, so don't forget to subscribe as well. Okay, signing off.